Now America's got Jews and they paid and everything and they lending money to everybody except us.
Was Tupac right? We've all heard the same talking points from politicians. People should not be given handouts.
Can help people get off of welfare and into the workforce. It just is better for everyone.
We are not a socialist country. This is America. We believe in free markets, personal responsibility, and pulling yourself up by your bootstraps. Sounds noble, right? But behind the slogans and sound bites, there's a twist. What if the real story of how our economy works, who gets help and who gets punished, isn't what we've been told? Here's the truth. We already have socialism in America, just not for the people you think. While working families are told to hustle harder, budget smarter, and earn every inch they climb, another group quietly gets help, protection, and financial lifelines from the same system that tells the rest of us to sink or swim. This isn't a conspiracy. It's policy. It's baked into the American system. And once you see how it works, you can't unsee it. To understand it, we're going to break it down, chapter by chapter. In Chapter 1, we'll look at who really benefits from government support. And it's not who politicians usually talk about. In Chapter 2, we dive into what happens when a billion-dollar company fails versus when an ordinary person does. The difference might surprise you. In Chapter 3, we give you our final thoughts on the American system of socialism for the rich and capitalism for the poor. Want to know how economic decisions actually affect your wallet, your job, and your future? Hit subscribe, because understanding the economy isn't just smart, it's survival. Every year, the U.S. hands out billions of dollars in subsidies to massive corporations. A subsidy is basically government speak for, here's some free money, you're welcome. It can come in the form of cash grants, tax breaks, or discounted land and resources, like a corporate coupon book. The idea is to encourage companies to do things that supposedly benefit the economy, like creating jobs or investing in innovation. But here's the problem. Most of that money goes to companies that don't need it. We're talking about oil giants, big agricultural businesses, big pharma, and tech giants like Amazon, companies already making billions in profits. Let's look at Amazon, the company, according to CNBC, that made $11 billion in profit and paid $0 in federal income tax that same year legally in 2018. Yeah, that one. Despite its wealth, and according to goodjobs.com, Amazon has received over $11.6 billion in state and local subsidies. Because cities and states are constantly competing with each other, offering massive tax breaks to attract Amazon warehouses and offices, all in the name of economic development. It's kind of like bidding to host the Olympics, except instead of gold medals, they hand out tax breaks, land, and public resources, all for the chance to land a few warehouse jobs. But here's the catch. Those tax breaks often mean less money for schools, public transportation, and basic services. The jobs Amazon brings? Mostly low-wage, high-turnover, and non-union. And local small businesses? They often can't compete, and many are pushed out. Then there's agribusiness, which receives about $30 billion a year in government subsidies. But this isn't about helping small family farms. Most of the money goes to massive industrial agriculture operations that are already highly profitable, while small farmers struggle to survive. And when it comes to big pharma, it's the same pattern. Public agencies like the National Institutes of Health, NIH, fund research that leads to life-saving drugs. Then private pharmaceutical companies swoop in, patent the drugs, and sell them back to the public at the highest prices in the world. Meanwhile, for the poor, government support comes with more hoops and far fewer guarantees. Need food assistance? The average SNAP benefit is about $6 per person per day, barely enough to cover groceries, especially with rising food prices. Need help with childcare? Programs like the Child Care and Development Fund, CCDF, exist, but demand far exceeds supply. Many families face months or even years on wait lists, depending on where they live, and the application process is often long and complex. Need housing? Section 8 vouchers are supposed to help low-income families afford rent, but only about 1 in 4 eligible households actually receive assistance due to underfunding. Individuals applying for help may be required to pass drug tests, prove employment or job search activity, and submit extensive documentation, essentially their entire financial life story. When billionaires receive government money, we call it economic development or incentives. When working families get help, we call it welfare or handouts. And say things like,
these are important reforms so that people can get back in the workforce and understand the value of work.
Same government, same dollars, two very different stories.
It's too much money here. I mean, nobody should be hitting lotto for 36 million and we got people starving in the streets.
In Chapter 2, we're looking at what happens when you fail in America. Because for the wealthy, failure is a social handout and loophole that is just part of the business plan. For the rest of us, failure becomes a life sentence. No safety net, no second chance. Just a cold reminder from our capitalist system. Figure it out. Let's talk about bankruptcy. In America, the word bankruptcy doesn't mean the same thing for everyone. In this chapter, we'll explore how bankruptcy leads to two completely different realities for corporations and the everyday person. For many large corporations, bankruptcy isn't a last resort. It's a business strategy, a clean slate with little real consequence. And one of the most high-profile examples of this strategy? Johnson & Johnson. You probably know them for Band-Aids, Tylenol, and baby powder. But behind the scenes, they pulled off a legal maneuver so slick it could have had its own theme music. For years, Johnson & Johnson has faced over 60,000 lawsuits related to its talc-based baby powder. Many of these lawsuits allege a connection between the product and serious health conditions, including ovarian cancer and mesothelioma. To address the litigation, Johnson & Johnson used a legal strategy known as the Texas two-step. And no, it's not a dance. Here's what that means in simple terms. They created a new company, moved all the baby powder-related lawsuits into that company, and then had that new company file for bankruptcy. This move immediately paused ongoing litigation and allowed Johnson & Johnson to propose a global settlement of $8.9 billion, while the parent company, with an estimated value of over $400 billion, continued its operations unaffected. A judge recently ruled that Johnson & Johnson cannot use the controversial bankruptcy maneuver that it has attempted for years. To many, it appears that the company has repeatedly attempted to shift liability for lawsuits to a subsidiary, which would then file for bankruptcy. This legal strategy allowed Johnson & Johnson to delay proceedings and shield the parent company from significant financial consequences, even as allegations of serious health risks continued to mount. So why is Johnson & Johnson allowed to do this? Because the U.S. legal and financial system is designed to protect major corporations. There are built-in tools, like bankruptcy loopholes, that let companies dodge massive liabilities without ever putting their core business or their CEO bonuses at risk. For everyday people, like you or me, who took out student loans chasing the American dream, what happens when life doesn't go as planned? Bankruptcy offers no way out. That debt follows you for life. Americans owe over $1.7 trillion in student loans. The average borrower owes about $37,000. And unlike corporations, they can't get relief through bankruptcy. Why? Because the laws were changed, first in 1998 for federal loans, then again in 2005 for private loans, after heavy lobbying from the same financial institutions that profit from that debt. Fall behind on payments, and the consequences are harsh. Your wages can be garnished. Your tax refund can be taken however. In some states, you can even lose your professional license, because nothing says pay your debt like taking away the job you need to earn money. There's no legal loophole, no shell company, no reset button. For everyday people, debt is a life sentence. For some corporations, it's just a line on a balance sheet. That's not just unfair, that's socialism for the wealthy and punishment for everyone else.
That is not idealistic, that's just real. That is just stupid.
So the next time you hear a politician warning you about socialism,
we will never let socialism destroy American healthcare.
Ask yourself, who's actually getting the handouts? Because in America, we already have a system where failure is forgiven, but only for the powerful, moves quietly upward, while the rest of us are told to tighten our belts, where billion-dollar corporations get bailouts, subsidies, and second chances, and working people get lectures about personal responsibility, isn't just about economics, it's about priorities, power, and who the system is really built to serve. The truth is, if we want a fairer economy, we have to look at the policies our politicians have created and ask, who were these really built for? Us or the corporations and the wealthy? Because once you see how the game is played, the only question left is, are we finally ready to change it and stop allowing our politicians to spin the truth?